Okay, as we're seeing interest rates are going down, will they continue to go down? Today we're going to talk about all the multiple factors that are impacting interest rates right now. If you should buy now, should you wait? And we're going to talk about strategies that have been working for our clients who are looking to jump into the market to either sell or buy. Let's talk a little bit about it. And as always, we got Aaron. Aaron, how are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, there's a whole lot of chatter in the world of mortgage interest rates, and the good news is for the first time I feel like in a long time it's about rates going down instead of up, which has been the narrative for so long. So it is kind of a breath of fresh air for anybody in real estate or all you potential buyers or move up buyers that have been watching rates and waiting for things to become more affordable and all that stuff. But, there are, like you said, a lot of moving parts. And I think that over the last couple of years, since we've seen rates shoot up, is that we've learned that a lot of the basic principles, the foundations around like really what causes mortgage rates to go up and down, which by the way, typically that's inflation. A lot of that stuff's gone out the door. There's so many different variables and curveballs and all sorts of stuff that can impact what happens with rates, and we'll dive into all this stuff. But I think like you and I were talking about before we went live on here was one thing that you and I have been talking about since rates really started moving up in 2022 is that for the people that are ready to pounce. Because again, you got to time your life, not the market, like we always talk about. But when it is that time in your life, the people that are in a position to pounce, they're already pre-approved. They've already, gotten aligned with their real estate team. They're all dialed in. Those people are going to be in a position to pounce and take advantage of these little pockets of opportunity where all the stars are aligned and just with all the different, economic news and things going on that they're going to be able to, take a sweet deal on a rate or a builder incentive or, whatever the case is, right?
Well, I mean, I think you're right on. And I think here's the thing that I saw specifically. Beginning of last week, the week before, the market was slow. Interest rates were dropping, but it wasn't a huge like, oh my God, like it's like everyone's jumping in. And I kind of was thinking that there was going to be a number. And I think it's being spurred on by a lot of different things. One is I do think that we talked offline is a lot of clients are reaching out to you. A lot of clients are seeing numbers on the internet everywhere. I mean, like new homes, resale homes, whatever, but they're starting to see numbers, and numbers move markets, as we've all seen. People are seeing fives for 15 years, and people are starting to see like, okay, hold on, I'd written off buying, but now there could be a chance for me right now to jump in and do it. And so I think what you're seeing is because of all this YouTube stuff, because of all the media, because of all these like numbers, people are reaching out to lenders that they've worked with. Lenders are reaching out to people as well too, but all of a sudden you have this renewed interest of like, wow, like a remarketing technique, right? Where it's like, I love this pen. This pen I always wanted, but I'm not ready to buy it. 5 months later, it pops up and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to buy right now. So I think you're seeing numbers really, really impact people to kind of jump off the fence a little bit, or at least be curious if they should buy. Now, I think the big question is, as far as on every single buyer out there right now, is like, how low can interest rates get? Like, how low is it physically possible for them to get? I know we've seen 2.75s, and for you have a 2.25 because you got a VA loan, but like, what do you think as far as how low can we go?
Well, I think historically, if you exclude the COVID interest rates, which were in the twos, because you got to remember that our government, i.e. the taxpayer, we spent approximately $5 trillion, trillion, not B with a billion, but trillion in purchasing mortgage-backed securities and treasury notes. And that artificially drove down the prices of mortgage rates. So that's why we saw twos for so long. It wasn't because that was like, reality. That was an artificial market that the government created. And coincidentally, it caused massive inflation. And, that's why rates, shot up so high, kind of bit us in the butt. We stayed down for far too long. But if you go before that, and you look at like in healthy economies, what was a really good interest rate when the economy was firing on all cylinders. And it seems like a good interest rate historically has been about 5% on a 30-year fixed without having to pay a bunch of additional fees, like points is what we refer to them as, or buy downs or whatever, to get into that rate zone. And we're not there yet today, but we're heading in the right direction. And so, I do believe that once, everybody's in the fives, and that means some people might be in the high fours, or you'll see stuff advertised when it's sneaky lenders, but they're advertising like a 10-year loan, but everybody thinks it's a 30-year loan. And so they see lower rates. And so I think that we're heading in the right direction in terms of the trend of rates and making things, at least appear more affordable. Keep in mind that home prices have still continued to go up. Inventory is still anemic. And so those two things aren't going to, change. There's no silver bullet changing that. So I think like when we look at like how low are rates realistically going to go, if we were to kind of set that marker in the fives, I think that would be like within the realm of reality. But the real question is like, well, when is that going to happen, and how long does it take to get there? And nobody knows. I think that, there's so many variables because we are a global economy and everything is interconnected. And if something happens over here, it indirectly impacts something over there, and vice versa. It's really hard to, put your finger on the pulse of things and be like, okay, well, based off of where inflation's trending, we should be at this percentage rate by this date, which, like Barry Habib and a lot of the, like oracles of mortgage rate forecasting, they did that stuff over these last 2 years. And you and I have reported on it, as did the entire industry. And they were wrong every single time. And what we learned was that a lot of like the fundamentals, the basic principles of what, causes things to go up or down have kind of gone out the window. And we've got, you and I could talk about so many different things, from, Iran to the elections to Japan to, there's so many different things going on that are impacting rates. It's hard to say, but back to what I said originally, there will be pockets of opportunity where, like, all the stars are aligned, and when you're ready to pounce, you will be able to snake a sweet deal.
Well, I think one of the things that, like, it's funny, you're going to see a whole bunch, you guys are going to see a whole bunch of crazy numbers, right?
Sure.
I was at a couple new home builders and they're offering 3.99s. They're offering, some people were offering 4.99s. And, like, it's just going to get you really confused as to what's actually out there. I'd say, like, right now you're going to see new homes that they're going to be, I think new homes overbuilt, and I think they could have shot themselves in the foot. So I think they're going to start trying to get rid of inventory right now because rates are going down. And as we all have seen, that for the most part, one of the big things that new homes offered was the idea of buy down the rates and you can get into a house, all that stuff too. So now the interest rates are going down a little bit. I think they might be a little nervous. They might be hearing footsteps. And so I think people are able to get great deals at the new homes. Does that mean you should jump on a new home? It's a tough one. I think Aaron and I are all on the same page. We're like, buy what you want. It's your purchase, right? But the thing that for me is just as much as you might think you're ready, as much as like all that stuff hits you, the numbers and hits you, like, it's going to be hard for you to time the market, right? I'm always telling people, and this is something that I kind of live for these days right now, is I'm like, I know the rates, I know all this stuff too, and everything fine. Think about what monthly you can afford. Think about what monthly makes sense for you. The monthly payment for me is a lot more important than actually my rate. Okay, for my rate, whatever. It is what it is, right? But I look at it based on my job security, how much money I got in my bank, and what does my monthly look like? I love knowing my monthly payment. Aaron knows this. I was on him. I'm like, what does my monthly look like? What does my monthly look like? Interest rates, it's just like, what is it? Like a point, maybe you're like saving like $350 a month or something around there, depending on the house, of course, but like around there. What do you think?
Well, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because when it comes to interest rates, I think it's a lot more psychological than it is like a mathematical, hey, it now makes sense. And my point, or my point behind that is that I get that the monthly payment is a direct reflection of what the interest rate is, but an interest rate at 7% compared to 6% is not going to make like a multi-$1,000 a month difference in somebody's payment. It's going to be nominal. It's going to be a couple $100, maybe a few $100. If you're borrowing $700,000-$800,000, maybe you're talking, $400-$500 in difference. The payment, your monthly payment is mainly the purchase price and how much you're borrowing. And so the big thing in terms of affordability and, things being within that right price point has much more to do with the sales price of a house and how much money you're able to come up with for your down, because the more you borrow, obviously the higher your payment's going to be. But you'd be very surprised as to how little, like I've, some of the people that I talked to, for example, over the weekend that reached out to me because they heard in the news, that rates were dropping. They're like, hey, I let me know, is it time to refinance, or, let me know when or whatever. And some of them, I told them, hey, I didn't think it was worth it yet. And a couple of them, just because of where they had started and their particular scenario, it actually, for them, some of them, it did make sense. And one of the people I was talking to, they told me that they wanted to wait. They had a specific rate in mind, and the rate that they were trying to get to compared to the rate that they could get to without waiting was literally 0.125% difference in rate. And it only made a $24 a month difference in the payment. But mentally, it was that I got to get into this interest rate in order for it to make sense. And so with rates, I think as a consumer, a lot of it is like that, we're like walking the aisles in the grocery store and we're seeing the numbers, but it's much more of like a psychological thing versus what I can truly afford,
Well, the other thing too is, okay, here's a big one, and as you were talking, I was listening, but I was like, something that hit me straight up is a lot of people that we've worked with, a lot of people that my team has been doing stuff have gone into new homes, right? So when you're working with a new home, you're gonna, like, of course, the lender that you worked with at the new home, whether it's Taylor, whether it's TriPoint, whether it's Lennar, whatever, they're gonna hit you right away. And they're going to basically say, hey, you can refinance. You do not have to go with that lender. You do not. No. You're not forced into that. Chances are, like, if they didn't do right by you first time, or if you kind of like, you should always get a second opinion. Once the shackles are broken and you have your new home, you're not obligated to go with Lennar's mortgage company or TriPoints or whoever else's. You can go and get a second opinion, and you should do the Pepsi challenge. Like, for me, I always tell my clients, talk to Aaron. If you're thinking about refinance, he's going to be someone who's not looking for the paycheck. He's going to be saying to yourself, like, it's just not time right now. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. And I think in this market, you really need to be careful, because a lot of people are saying, okay, I cannot wait to refinance. I cannot wait. It might not make any sense, but at the same time, if you don't have a relationship with someone and someone's just looking at the bottom line, they're going to say, yeah, you should refinance. Why wouldn't you? You save $100 a month, and in the end of the day, it might not be worth it. So just keep in mind that if you did buy a new home and all of a sudden you start getting these refi things, just double check with other lenders. Do the Pepsi challenge. Call Aaron up and just let him know a little bit about, like, hey, Lennar asked me if I wanted to refinance. I got a 7%, and they're saying I can get this. What do you think? Right, Aaron?
Well, yeah. And, the reason that most of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the times it makes sense to use the builder's lender when you're buying a house is that the builder's lender offers a buyer's incentive. And that incentive is basically, they've baked it into the sales price of the house. It's a trick that they can use because they're also the seller. And so that incentive, it doesn't exist after you've bought the house. So when it comes to refinancing, you're going to get a much better deal, whether you work with my company or a different mortgage company. Don't go to the builder's lender for a refinance. That's not their bread and butter, and they're not going to, you're not going to get the best deal going with a company like that. But do the Pepsi challenge, as Mark likes to say.
I'm a Coke guy, but hey, the Pepsi Challenge just rings better. Okay, so check this
Sure.
out. Aaron, what do you think as far as right now for people who are getting those refinance emails? Is this the time? When is it going to make sense? What do the fees look like? What's all that? Give them a little bit of a breakdown as far as, because people are, some people might have
Sure.
bought it at 7.2, 7.2, 7.5, and all of a sudden they're seeing like, hey, I can get a 6.9. Does it make sense?
Well, everybody's scenario is going to be different because maybe when you got your loan, you had a 680 FICO, but now your credit's better because you got a mortgage reporting and now you got a 740 FICO, or maybe you had mortgage insurance and now your value's higher, so you can reduce that a little bit more too. And on top of it, maybe your rate was, so my point being is that there's definitely, no one size fits all when it comes to does a refinance make sense or not. But in general, here is kind of the school of thought that I've always gotten behind when it comes to refinances and all the different refinance markets that I've been in over the last 20 plus years. And it basically, when you're refinancing, you're starting your term over. I mean, unless you do a 29-year loan or a 28-year loan or a 20, so on, but that eats into your savings, right? So most people, when they refinance, if they're in a 30-year fixed, they refinance into another 30-year fixed. So they're starting their term over. And there's just like everything in life, there's no free lunch. There's closing costs. You've got title fees, notary, taxes, things like that. And so with a refinance, it has to mathematically make sense. You got to be saving enough money basically in order to go through the hassle and expense associated with it. And in my opinion, you need to be able to recoup the costs of your refinance somewhere like sub 12 months, preferably like in the first 6 months, maybe. I like to see somebody drop their rate by at least 1% in interest rate, or a combination of pretty close to 1%, and maybe they're getting rid of PMI or other things that also increase the savings. But one of the things that I do not recommend doing is don't pay points to get your refinance done. The reason for that is that odds are that at some point in time, whether it's next year, 5 years from now, or whatever, rates are going to drop again and you're going to want to refinance again. And mathematically, if you pay points, you're never going to be in your loan long enough to recoup the cost that you paid up front for it. So try and get a no point deal where you're saving at least 1% on your rate and that you're recouping all of those costs that you're going to pay to the title, lender, all that stuff, within like 6 to 12 months. By the way, if you want to talk about your refi, you want to look at a quote, you got questions, my team, we're happy to answer those for you. So reach out to me, reach out to Mark. We'll get you the information that you guys need in order to make an educated decision.
Okay, so bottom line is like right now, probably, for select, maybe now a couple of people, refi might make sense, but for the most part, we're just not there yet, correct?
Yeah, I mean, like out of that wave that's kind of been created over the last couple weeks of momentum, I'd say like maybe like 5% of my past clients. And when I say past, like past clients over the last 2 years, they're now like in that zone, maybe close to 10% are in that zone where it makes financial sense. And the other thing that you got to kind of weigh out too, and this is hard to do because nobody knows what the future is going to hold, is that, do you refinance too early? And then maybe you do it today and then all of a sudden rates drop through the floor next, month or a quarter from now. And then it doesn't make sense to do it again yet. So it's kind of this balancing act where it's impossible to time things perfectly. I tried doing it in the refinance game last time, even on my own deal, and I missed it. And I own a mortgage company and I missed it. I should have a 1.875 mark, but I screwed up and I'm at 2.25. So, even the pros can't get the timing right on it. So it's much more of like, are you saving enough? And it's just kind of the nice thing I will say on refinances is that there's no emotions in it. It's a financial decision. Does it make sense or does it not? There's no like, well, do I feel good about this? You don't have to worry about that. You already bought the house. You already know if you like it or not. It's not the same emotional decision that you had to go through when you were buying the thing.
Hey, you got a 2.25. You should be happy.
I'm not crying in my beer about it.
Okay, so let's wrap this up just a little bit. First of all, if you're a seller, my opinion for sellers out there right now is just, I would say, price aggressively. If interest rates start going down a little bit, it could be even a better market for you to sell. It just could. Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. More demand, because more people are interested in buying. More people can maybe afford your house if you're at a high price point. So it could be a better market for you even though we're getting into the colder months. I know weird things are happening. Like I said, as of the end of last week and this weekend, I was just slammed. So I would say for sellers, just keep your eyes peeled. Work with a good listing agent who's not just saying, let's list right now. Let's go, go, go. Someone who actually has a strategy in mind. Someone who has a great YouTube channel that can push your house out there and sell it on YouTube. I would say for me, if you're a buyer, I would say just like Aaron said, I would say first off, make sure you're, as much as don't try timing the market, time your own life, try to figure out. And I mean, when I say that, I mean it like, just make sure you can afford the payment. Like that's what it all boils down to. Make sure that you're doing it, not just because you're getting caught in the numbers game and that's it. And you want to do it and this and that and everything too. Timing your life is just, the decisions you make when you're timing your life the right way just end up being better decisions. That's how I've lived my life.
Totally.
So I would say time your life. I would say for buyers, I would say that if you are maybe having another child, you're thinking about getting a bigger house, you're moving to the area, research time right now, education, figure out how many houses are moving in certain areas, price per square footage, work with an amazing real estate team like my team, and of course a great broker like Aaron. Get yourself educated, right? One of the things that we like to do, especially with people, it's not as far as showing you 3 houses and saying this is the one you should get. It's all about showing you the communities that you like, narrowing down your search, educating you on the buy, and then eventually you will do what so many other clients have done when we've shown them houses. That moment will hit where we don't say anything and you look to us and say, this is the one, this is the house. Mm-hmm. We love it. It's great and it works. So for buyers, education is a main key in this market. Working with someone who knows the market, knows like the movements of the market is very, very key as well too. But for you guys, just make sure whatever payment that is, your monthly, because that's going to help you sleep at night. So Aaron, okay, let's roll it to you. For sellers, what are you thinking? What advice would you give that seller?
I think that this is a bit of a windfall for sellers because typically, we're like my daughter, she starts school on Thursday. We got orientation Wednesday, Thursday. The people are going to start rolling up the sidewalks pretty soon. Back to school, holidays, all that stuff. So rates coming down during this time, it's going to incentivize. Even if they haven't come down a ton, it's going to bring more buyers back into the market. It'll reinvigorate some active buyers. And like Mark said, it'll make a few people that they couldn't qualify for enough. Now they do. So as a seller, I think you got this extra breath of fresh air blown into your sales, going into what would typically be when things should be slowing down. So that would be my advice for the sellers and for buyers. In addition to what, I just reiterating the time of your life, not the market, don't buy if you're not ready, but assuming that you are ready, time, is not on your side. And what I mean by that is that inventory is still low. And it's just a supply and demand thing. And if you look at home prices, almost all markets have been seeing, 6%, 7%, some like 10, 20% annual price increases. And so the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. And so as rates come down and more buyers come into the market, that's just going to exasperate that competition. And, just so it's, I would definitely be ready to pounce. And if your life is in that right place, I wouldn't be afraid to make that move. Get in while it's a little less crowded.
I mean, it's going to be nuts. I mean, if we get into the fives, and like I said, I was out this weekend. I saw $3.99 at some builders. I saw $4.99 at some builders. I think LGI has got lower than even $3.99s going right now. And then as far as our regular market, 15, you can, with the credit and everything, you can get like underneath a 6%. So we're actually $5.99. But I do think if we get to fives, and like Aaron said, we could get there. We could get to 5%. Like if we get there, the market will go bananas. It will go absolutely bananas. And if we have a 5 behind it, even if it's a 5.999, I do think it's going to be a game changer in this market. And I would just say for you buyers out there, like the strategy again that we always talk about buying refinance later, it might be something that you want to think about doing. I'm not saying it's perfectly set for you, but like I can tell you one thing, if the market does do what I think it's going to do when it hits fives, multiple offers, prices going up, a lot more competition, and just keep note of that and just try not to be one of the late people who kind of jump in late to the game and say, oh my God, rates started to go up a little bit. I'm out there. I'm looking at a house. It's already 20, there's 20 offers in on it. There's this, there's this, because it can get absolutely crazy. And we've seen it already. The last few years, we've seen it flip on a dime and all of a sudden it's just like nuts. So just be aware that the market, the real estate market right now is like the ocean. Do not turn your back on it for a second. Okay, Aaron, any parting words?
I just remind you guys, advice and phone calls are free, so don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're here to help.
Okay, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. And like I said, you got another video right here and a playlist of Aaron and myself over there. And please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Could interest rates get to 5%? Possibly. Get educated, get prepared, and work with our team if you're thinking about moving to the Sacramento area or you're thinking about listing a house. Until next time, guys, this is Mark. Have a good one.